Premium bonds are always a really, really popular topic for you guys. You want to know what your chances are of winning if you put your cash into these savings accounts. And as we've seen over the last year, there have been a number of increases of the prize rate. The chances that you'll win have increased. How much you might win if you do win, they've got higher as well, making it, again, potentially more and more tempting for you to put your money there in the hope that not only will you get the prize rate on offer, but you might get more. Remember, prizes with premium bonds, the top ones, only 2 of these each month, of £1 million. So then there's a chance of winning so much more than you would from another savings account. And a few years ago, I did an experiment to kind of get an idea of, what could you win over a year? And you've got to remember, it's all very individual. Everyone will have very different experiences. But again, this was in 2020, I think it is, maybe 2021. I did a whole year. I had £10,000 saved in premium bonds for a year. And I showed with you exactly what I won over that period. And actually, I managed to get more than I should have done. I got more than the prize rate, which means I was slightly luckier than the average person. And when we looked at the comments of that video, you could see that some of you had a similar experience to me. Some of you had a better experience than me and you won even more money. Remember, there is that potential to get £100,000 or £1 million or win even more every single month. Some of you had a much, much worse experience and didn't get much at all. And obviously, that does vary. There's loads of reasons why that can vary. But I thought it was a really interesting one. I don't have money in premium bonds anymore, but I was with some friends the other day, a group of people, and we're chatting about them. And it turned out that 2 of the group, they had the full £50,000 saved into premium bonds. They'd had it in there, both of them, for the last 6 months. So I asked them if they would share with me what they had won, what their prizes were, because they hadn't really spoken about it. They didn't know what anyone else was going. They just saw what was coming into their account. And it was really, really interesting. So in this video, I want to share with you the experiences of those 2 people. And then from that, talk about whether we should be using them or not, whether they are a good alternative to savings accounts. So we need to kind of think about here what the prize rate is. It is kind of going to come back into it later on. The prize rate has changed a number of times in that 6-month period. So the draws that took place in May and June, the prize rate was 3%. The prize rate in July was 3.75%. In August, it was 4%. And the September and October draws, 4.65%. Now, I know this is a bit of a fudge, but that gives you an average prize rate over that period of 3.84%. So that's what we need to kind of be thinking about. 50 grand, you'd hoping if you had an average rate of luck, you might get close to that. Unlikely to be, probably more likely to be just below that, but that's what you'd be hoping for over that period. So what did they actually do? Let's look at saver number 1 first of all. So the draw in May, the first draw that they had, told me they were very excited about this because, the prize rate had been increasing at that time. I think it was maybe slightly competitive compared to savings accounts around then as well. May draw 50 grand, the full amount. Remember, the more money you have in there, the more chances you've got of winning because you've got more bonds that are entered into the competition. And they won nothing at all. The next month, surely things have got to get better. And there is an element here with these that the luck will average out over the year, right? Next month, £75. That's compared to if you guys had premium bonds a few years ago like I did, when the prizes, if you got one, were 25 quid. 75 is nice, right? That's a larger amount. The month after that, £100. So again, bigger again. Looking possibly here, potential if that carries on, that's going to help. But then in August, the draw after that, 50 quid. In September, the draw after that, 50 quid again. And then in October, the draw that took place just 3 or 4 weeks ago, nothing again. So in total, over 6 months, this person with a full £50,000 saved in premium bonds won £275. That is the equivalent return of 1.1%. Yeah, 1.1. Now we said the average prize rate was 3.4. So that's a big drop down. They have had some bad luck when it comes to their premium bonds. In a moment, we'll talk about how that might compare to savings, but we're focused here just on premium bonds. So, even if this person, and we'll talk about tax in a moment, even if this person had the premium bonds because they'd already maxed out their personal savings allowance and their ISA, so the rate they'd get elsewhere, would have been subject to tax, and they were a high rate tax base, they would have had 40% tax off their interest. That's still really poor. That's still much worse than what they could have got anywhere else. So a good example of where premium bonds are not necessarily the dream. So then we have a look at saver number 2. How did they do? Well, they started off with a much, much, much better result. £125 in that first draw in May. In June, £200. In July, dropping back down to 50 quid. But already, what's that? 375 quid. They're already in 3 months got more than the other person had in the whole 6 months. So already looking good for maybe getting a much better return over the year. But as we know, these months can go up and down, potentially could be a lot lower or nothing at all in a month, as we saw with saver number 1 when they had 2 months with nothing at all and 2 months with just 50 quid. Maybe this was a strong start, but more of a fluke. Well, in August, it was back up to 100 quid. And in September, wait for this, £400. Now, this is often some of these prizes, they're made up of a number of prizes. It's not like one bond wins £400. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but I think this was like maybe one bond got 50, another got 100, another got 100, and maybe there was a 200 or something. That I can't remember what the split was. But again, it was lots of different ones, multiple bonds winning to give that prize of 400 quid. Now, I know that's not 50,000 or 100,000 or a million, but that's still pretty nice to win £400 entering your account once a month. And in October, the draw that just happened, 150 quid. So another strong response. So in total, over the 6 months, my friend, saver number 2, got £1,050. That's almost 4 times what saver number 1 got over the exact same period for the exact same amount of money saved into premium bonds. They were quite smug when they saw how much better they'd done compared to the other person. And the average equivalent rate here is 4.1%. So that is, they've been lucky compared to what the prize rate, the average prize rate should have been. Because if the average prize rate, say, was at 3.84%, you'd expect maybe you'd be hoping for 3.5%, 3.4%. It always tends to be a little bit lower with the average rate of luck. To do that much more, to get an average of 4.1, means they did very, very well. They were incredibly lucky. Not as lucky as maybe everyone would hope they'd be with premium bonds, but still pretty lucky. So why is that? Why is there such a big difference between the winnings? Why did saver number 1 get 275 quid and saver number 2 get £1,050? That is a big, big difference. How has that happened for the same amount of money being saved in the accounts for the same amount of time? Well, there are often a number of conspiracies, and some of you might be going, hang on, I know what's happened here. And you may have previously commented on one of my videos about this. You might be thinking, well, obviously the newer bonds, they're more likely to win. Or you might be thinking, sometimes they exclude older bonds. If you've had them for too long, they don't enter them into the draw. Perhaps you're thinking, well, if a bond has previously won, it's not going to be entered again. You can't win more than once on the same bond. Or maybe you're thinking, well, I bet you one of these guys lived up north and one of them lives in London. Because those people in London, they are always the big winners. Now, none of those are true. The last one has an element of truth to it, simply because more people in London, there's more money in London, more people in London than other places. So therefore, they are more likely to appear on the results charts as winners. That's the only reason there. There is no bias towards people in London and South East. There is no difference between a bond bought 50 years ago and 1 month ago. There is no difference to a bond that's previously won and has never won anything. Every single bond has the same chance of winning a prize. And this is what we come back to at the beginning. We talked at the beginning. Premium bonds are a draw. They're a competition. If you win, it is down to luck. And with luck, it can be good. It can be bad. It can be kind of mediocre. And what we've got here is someone who's had very, very bad luck and someone who's had better than average luck. And someone somewhere over that period has got £1 million. I think it's £2 million prizes every single month. So that's 12 people won £1 million, possibly, not necessarily with 50k, and they might have had less in, but broadly speaking, you know, some people have exceptional luck with these. But there's nothing you can do about it. It is just the nature of premium bonds. You might win, you might not win. And this is why I've always been, again, telling you to make sure you consider whether your money would be better off in cash savings. And unless that prize rate is exceptionally higher than the interest rate, as we had a couple of years ago, then often there's not really much point in doing it, with an important exception that I will come back to. Broadly speaking, put your money in savings. And to demonstrate that, I've had a quick look at, over that same 6-month period, what the returns would have been for people putting that same 50k. So if either of my friends put that money in savings rather than premium bonds, what they would have got. A guaranteed return. Now, obviously, I haven't got a complete record of the different accounts, but what I'm assuming here is in my monthly Best Buy updates for savings, I'll tell you what the best easy access account is then. I'm assuming from that point, the money was in that account for the next 30 days, and then the next 30 days, they moved their money to the next best one if it had changed. And what that did, it gives you a top rate in April of 3.4%, in May of 3.71%, in June of 3.82%, in July of 4.35%, in August of 5%, and in September of 5.2%. And before you say, hang on, you've got your months mixed up there. The other one was May to October. This is April to September. You've got to remember with premium bonds, the money has to be in the account for 30 days before the draw takes place. So although it's the October draw, really it's your return on the money held in September. So that's why with savings, I've knocked it back on what you would have got in that month. Now, if you add those together, you give yourself a very rough average. Again, it's not going to be technically the correct thing, but the interest rate works out at roughly 4.25%. Now, we know that the average rate on the prize rates was 3.84%. So straight away, if you got bang on the prize rate, you would be doing less well than putting the money into savings. About 0.5% difference in that same period. And you would earn roughly £1,062.50. So that's kind of our benchmark. You might have got more if your savings accounts be slightly different in how they're cut up and when they are in the month and things, or you might not have moved them all the time. But broadly speaking, move your money each time, you would have got £1,062. Now, how does that compare to our friends? Saver number one, they would have lost out on £787.50 over that 6 months. It's a huge amount of money to lose out on just because the chance you might win a lot more. Saver number two, though, they weren't down as much because they had better than average luck with premium bonds. So they actually were only down £12.50. So in both those cases, they would have been better off with money in savings. Now, you could argue, yeah, but Andy, you're moving your money every single month. And that is true. If you kept your money just in the same account you opened in April at 3.4% for that 6 months, you would have had less than the person who did quite well, but still more than the person who didn't do very well at all. Okay, so broadly speaking, you're going to do better getting those better rates on your savings accounts. And some of these accounts I mentioned here, in fact, they automatically up their rates. So you would have got more as time went on, if not the top rates. But as I said, there is one caveat to come back to, and this is really important. And this actually did apply to both of my friends. Both of my friends had already maxed out their personal savings allowance. One of them was a high rate taxpayer. One of them was a basic rate taxpayer. And that essentially meant they either had £500 or £1,000 allowance of tax-free interest outside of ISAs or outside of premium bonds, because the prizes you get from premium bonds are all tax-free. Now, if you do that, if you take the rate that they would need to beat in savings minus tax, it starts bringing it down. So a basic rate taxpayer, the average rate of 4.25% in savings, actually, the earnings they've got over £1,000, the real return on that additional money is 3.4%. And if you're a high rate taxpayer, 2.55% on the earnings over £500 every single year. In this situation, still better for saver number one, but saver number two actually did significantly better on their return. They made, because they were the high rate taxpayer as well. I know they were the lower paid taxpayer, but even so, they were better off with that additional money in premium bonds. Now, this is just two examples. It will be different for everyone, but I thought it was really interesting. I really wanted to share with you just how different it can be. And obviously there will be people on the other end of the spectrums, higher and lower as well. So you really, really got to think about, if you are not someone who is going to be paying tax on their interest, do you need to be going for premium bonds? I still think you're better off getting the best paying savings account. Remember, becleverwithyourcash.com/savings, where we share the daily Best Buy tables are the options which will give you the highest amount of interest, plus my monthly updates here on the channel. If, however, you are paying tax on your savings over your personal savings allowance, or maybe you're an additional rate taxpayer who does pay tax on all their savings, and you've used up your £20,000 ISA allowance for the year as well, then premium bonds, they can be well worth considering. But do try and do that maths as well. Just try and work out what the deduction of tax off the rate would be versus that price rate. Where we are right now recording this, I think your premium bonds are going to be better. But if later on price rate goes down, interest rates go up, you might find the difference isn't there to really justify them. My name is Andy Webb. Thank you so much for watching. Check out these videos here for more ways to boost your savings.